No, my good lady, I'll never let you down, Chichikov said, using his hand to wipe away the sweat that was running down his face in 3 streams. He asked her whether she had some agent or acquaintance in town whom she could trust to draw up the purchase deed, and to do whatever might be required. Why, certainly, she said. There's the son of Father Cyril, the deacon, who works as a clerk for the district court. Chichikov requested her to write out a power of attorney for him and, to save her trouble, offered to compose it himself. And in the meantime, Mother Korobichko was thinking to herself, wouldn't it be nice if he bought flour and cattle for the government from me? I must get on the right side of him. There's still some batter left over from yesterday, so I'd better tell Fetinia to make pancakes with it. Might be a good idea to bake a turnover cake, too, with eggs in it. My people are good at baking turnovers, and then it doesn't take much time. She left the room to follow through on her idea about the turnover and probably to round it out with more of her household's cooking and baking creations, while Chichikov, too, left the room. He went to the living room, where he had spent the night, to get the necessary paper out of his box. The living room had long since been tidied, and the luxurious feather bed had been removed. Now a magnificently laid table stood by the couch. Chichikov placed his box on the table and gave himself a moment or two to breathe. He felt he was swimming in a river of sweat. Everything he had on, from his shirt to his socks, was completely soaked. She's exhausted me completely, the damned old hag, he said, when he had recovered a little and opened his box. The author is certain that readers exist who are sufficiently curious to wish to find out the plan and the internal arrangement of the box. So why not satisfy them? Here's the plan. In the very middle, a soap dish. Behind it, 6 or 7 very narrow partitions for razors. Then, square compartments for a sand shaker and an ink pot. Between these two was an oblong hollow space for quills, sealing wax, and any other rather long items. Then there were all sorts of compartments, with and without lids, for shorter items. And in these there were visiting cards, funeral announcements, old theater tickets, and other such things stored away as souvenirs. The entire upper tray with all its partitions was removable, and under it there was a space occupied by bundles of papers. Then there was a little secret money drawer that could be pulled out discreetly on one side of the box. This drawer was always pulled out and pushed in again so quickly by its owner that it was impossible to tell how much money it contained. Chichikov at once became busy. Having sharpened his quill, he settled down to write. At that moment, his hostess came in. A nice traveling case you have there. You must have bought it in Moscow? Yes, in Moscow, Chichikov said, and went on writing. I could see right away. They do things so well there. A couple of years ago, my sister was there, and she bought some warm boots for her children. Very strong stuff. They're still good. And look at that. Look at all that official stamped paper you've got there, she exclaimed, peeping into the box, which indeed contained an impressive quantity of stamped paper. Perhaps you could make me a present of a sheet, she suggested. I'm terribly short of it, and sometimes I have to draw up a petition to the court, and I have nothing to write it on. Chichikov explained to her that the stamped paper he had was of a different kind, and that it was intended for drawing up purchase deeds and not for petitions. But then, just to keep her quiet, he gave her a 1 ruble sheet. His letter completed, he gave it to her to sign and asked her for a little list of the peasants. It turned out that the lady landowner did not keep any records nor possess any list, but had everything in her head, and so he made her reel them off for him. Some of the names, and even more the nicknames of her peasants, struck him as so strange that he hesitated before writing them down. He was especially surprised by the nickname of one Peter Savelyev, which was Trough Scorner. Chichikov could not help commenting on it. Another peasant had Cow's Brick attached to his name, and yet another was simply entered as Ivan the Wheel. As he was finishing his writing, He sniffed and recognized the tempting smell of something hot cooked in butter. "Please do me the honor of having a bite with me," Mother Korobotchka said. Chichikov turned his head and saw that on the table there were mushrooms, patties, fritters, fried eggs, pancakes, rolls with all sorts of fillings, onions, poppy seeds, cottage cheese, curds, and God knows what else. "Some egg pie," the hostess suggested. Chichikov drew up to the egg pie, and after annihilating a little over half, praised it. Indeed, the pie was very good in its own right. And now, after all the trouble he had had with the old woman, it tasted even better. "And what about some pancakes?" his hostess suggested. For answer, Chichikov rolled 3 pancakes together, dipped them in melted butter, and dispatched them into his mouth, afterward wiping his hands and lips with a napkin. Having repeated this operation 3 times, he asked his hostess to order his carriage harnessed. She immediately sent Fatinia to transmit this order and, at the same time, told her to bring a few more hot pancakes. "Your pancakes are delightful, ma'am," Chichikov said, attacking the freshly served hot ones. "Yes, they make them quite nicely in my kitchen, but the harvest was so poor, and it's hardly worth growing wheat. The flour is so unprofitable." "But why are you in such a hurry to leave, my good friend? Your carriage isn't even harnessed yet," she said, seeing Chichikov pick up his cap. "It'll be harnessed, my good lady. It'll be harnessed in no time. My people can harness it very fast when they get down to it." "All right, then. And please don't forget me when you do your government purchasing." I won't forget, Chichikov said, stepping out into the hall. "And what about lard? Will you buy some for me?" Mother Korobotchka inquired, following him out. "Why not? I'll buy some too, but later." "I'll have plenty around Yuletide. Certainly, we'll buy everything. And that goes for lard too." "And then perhaps you'll need feathers? I'll have as much as you can use by St. Philip's Day." All right, Chichikov kept saying. "There, you see, my dear man, your carriage isn't ready yet," she said when they were outside. "Don't worry, it'll be ready. Just tell me how I can reach the main road." "How can I do that?" the hostess asked. "It's difficult to explain. With all the turns out there. Unless, perhaps, I were to send a girl along with you to show you the way. There must be room on the coachman's box for her." "Certainly there is." "I suppose I can lend you a girl, then. She knows the way well. Only please, don't go and carry her off for good. Some merchants carried off one of my girls once." Chichikov assured her that he was not going to carry off the girl. And Mother Korobotchka, quite reassured, started to look around to see what was available in her courtyard. Her eyes fell on the housekeeper, carrying a wooden dipper of honey, then on a peasant who had appeared at the yard gate. And gradually she became entirely absorbed in household problems. But why should we spend so much time on Mother Korobotchka? Whether it's Mother Korobotchka or Manilov's wife, and whether their problems are of a domestic nature or otherwise, let's pass them by. For things are indeed arranged wonderfully in this world. The funny will turn suddenly into the sad if you just pause in front of it long enough. And then heaven knows what may occur to you. You may even begin to wonder whether Mother Korobotchka really occupies such a lowly rung on the human ladder that stretches upward toward perfection. Is there really such a wide gulf between her and her sister, who sits sealed off between the walls of an aristocratic house with perfume floating over its wrought iron staircases with gleaming brass and bright oriental rugs, who yawns over an unfinished book in expectations of a witty and sophisticated visitor before whom she will have an opportunity to shine, to show her intelligence, to express some of the opinions she has learned by heart, opinions which, following the whims of fashion, occupy the town for a whole week. Not opinions on what is happening in her house or on her estate, which are in a mess because of her managerial incompetence, but on the government crisis ripening in France and the latest turn taken by contemporary Catholicism. Oh, why talk of all that? Let's get on with the story. But then, how is it that in the midst of unthinking, gay, carefree moments, a strange, spontaneous stream of thought crosses one's mind? And before the laughter has left one's features, one has become different amid the very same crowd, and a different light has begun to shine in one's face. Ah, here's the carriage, here it is, Chichikov exclaimed at the sight of his carriage approaching. What took you so long, you blockhead? Or hasn't your head cleared yet after yesterday's drinking? Selifan left this unanswered. Goodbye, ma'am, but where's the girl you wanted to lend me? Hey, Pelagea, Mother Korobuchka said to a girl of 11 or so, who was standing by the porch. She wore a homespun dress and was barefoot, although from a distance it looked as if she were wearing boots, so thick was the fresh mud around her feet. Go with the gentleman and show him the way. Selifan gave the girl a hand. She put her foot on the step intended for the master, muddying it, and only after that clambered up on the box next to the driver. After her, Chichikov placed his own foot on the step. The carriage tipped rightward under his weight. When he was finally settled, he said, All right then, farewell, ma'am. During the whole trip, Selifan was morose and attended closely to his business, which was always the way with him after a drinking bout or when he had been at fault in something. The horses were strikingly well groomed. The collar of one of them, which for a long time had had a rent in it, with the stuffing sticking out, had now been skillfully mended. Selifan kept silent, using his whip from time to time. Now no diatribes were addressed to the horses, and the dappled one missed them. For during such a speech, the reins always dangled listlessly in the hands of the loquacious driver, and his whip only strayed symbolically over their backs. This time, nothing but monotonously unpleasant shouts fell from his stern lips, such as, Come on, move, you old crow! Stop gaping! Get going! Get on! Even the other two horses, the sorrel and assessor, were disappointed to find that he did not address them as his beauties and worthies. The dappled horse felt extremely irritating lashes on his full, wide parts, and thought to himself, cocking his ears, What's come over him, after all? He certainly knows where to hurt you. He never whips you right on the back, but picks a spot where it stings worst. He flicks at your ears or gets you under the belly. To the right now? This laconic query was addressed by Selifan to the girl sitting next to him on the box. He pointed his whip at a rain-darkened road running between the rain-brightened green fields. No, I'll show you when, the girl said. So which way? Selifan asked her when they reached a crossroads. This way, the girl said, pointing with her hand. But that's to the right. Here's one who can't tell right from left. Although the day was clear, the earth was so drenched that the wheels of the carriage were soon covered with a coating of mud like felt. This slowed them down considerably, especially since the soil was clayey and incredibly clingy. So they didn't get out of the country roads until noon, and without the girl they wouldn't have managed it even then, because roads kept creeping off in all directions like a catch of crabs dumped out of a bag. Without her, Selifan would have had to go round and round, and this time it would not have been through any fault of his own. Then the girl pointed her finger at something looming black in the distance and said, The high road's over there. And what's that black building? Selifan wanted to know. An inn, the girl said. All right. Now we can manage by ourselves, Selifan decided. You can go back home. He stopped the carriage and helped her down, muttering through his teeth, Look at them black feet. Chichikov gave her a copper and she ambled off, happy at having sat on the driver's box.